Hello everyone. Can you
Yeah, I
guys
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
So
We
we're
should
gonna get started soon.
be starting in 10 minutes.
أهلا وسهلا فيكم, and welcome to the Arab American Community Center's Know Your Rights Legal Seminar and Attorney Panel. My name is Dana Ahmed, and I am an attorney, a personal injury attorney at Morgan & Morgan. And here we are today to discuss Know Your Rights. The AACC is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing services that meets the economic, social, legal, and cultural needs of the Arab American community in Central Florida. We strive to empower Arab Americans so that they can become healthy, engaged, and integrated citizens. It's a distinct pleasure to serve as your host for this engaging legal panel. And I'm also honored to introduce my co-host, Serge. Serge.
Yeah, so my name is Serge, and thank you for the introduction. I'm a lawyer at Hove Law, and today is my distinct pleasure to serve as your co-host for this engaging legal panel. I am also honored to introduce some of the attorneys that we're going to be that will be presenting today. Together we look forward to guiding you through the intriguing world of law.
So today we're here to help you navigate the intriguing universe of law, and our panel consists of 4 other skilled attorneys, each with a unique area of expertise. Today we'll be discussing topics such as family law, criminal defense, personal injury, business law and organizations, real estate law, estate planning, and immigration.
Our mission is not only to share information, but stimulate understanding and dialogue. We warmly encourage you to engage with us, ask some questions, and leverage this opportunity to learn from some of the brightest minds in the legal profession.
So without further ado, let's meet our esteemed panelists and dive into the fascinating world of law. Our first panelist is the founder and owner of the Florida Probate and Family Law Firm, attorney Samah Abu Khadr.
Our second panelist is founder and owner of Joshi Law, Rajan Joshi.
Our third panelist is the owner and founder of the Zaini Law Firm, attorney Abdurrahman Zaini.
And our last panelist is the founder and owner of Mubarak Law, Naif Mubarak.
Welcome, everyone, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Is everybody, we see everyone on the screen?
Naif
is not in here yet.
Let's see. Naif with us? Let's give him a moment to join. Oh. Okay, he said to proceed. He's just having some technical difficulties. So let's begin with our first panelist. So Samah, it's so nice to see you virtually. So today we want to discuss a few things and hope that you can enlighten us in the field of family law. But go ahead and give an introduction, and we'll look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Absolutely. So my name is Samah Abu Khadr, and I am the founder and managing partner of the Florida Probate and Family Law Firm with headquarters in Coral Gables, Florida. We have 6 offices in total all over the state of Florida, and we're opening offices all over. So inshallah, we'll have more soon. We help families with any family law issues that they're having. Those usually consist majority of divorce cases, but we also work on child custody cases, time sharing, child support, alimony, domestic violence, paternity actions, adoptions, and prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. So the way I usually explain it to people, because that's a mouthful, is anything family related. So anytime you're having any sort of family dispute, or in order to prevent any family dispute, you can call us and we will advise you as to what we think is the best option. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Family related issues.
Samah, what is a situation that you've seen in the Arab community that's common amongst family law? I know there's a lot of questions regarding divorce and child custody, but what is something that you've seen that's been like a reoccurring pattern?
I would say 2 things. We have been, that someone's okay. We've been getting calls asking whether Islamic agreements or Islamic marriages will be upheld in courts. So that's been a huge question. And the answer to that is usually if it's documented, there's an agreement in place, it's properly executed, it's something we can review, and then we can decide whether it can be upheld in court or not. The short answer is, unfortunately, we as a community don't usually do things the legal way. And so most of the agreements that we see are not upheld in court because they aren't properly executed. And if they had seen an attorney before they got married, or after getting married and no issues, we could have resolved this. But at this time, those are the biggest issues we're seeing in the Muslim community. Another thing that we're seeing is, unfortunately, domestic violence actions. So a lot of people are calling in and saying that there has been some sort of violence in their relationship, but there is no evidence. So they're not calling the police. There's no police reports. There's no he said, she said battle. And unfortunately, again, like I said before, these are not things that we can take to court without solid evidence. So we counsel people and we tell them, these are the proper steps. This is the information that we need to move forward with your case.
And when it comes to time sharing or child custody, we've gotten some questions in regards to, my husband lives overseas, I live in the States, or vice versa. Is it kidnapping if I take my child on vacation out of the country? What would you say in regards to that?
So it's a jurisdictional issue. So if they have been in Florida for 6 months, it is an action that we can bring in the state of Florida. However, it depends on the evidence. It depends on what's in writing. So if one of the parents is giving permission for the child to go on vacation and it's in writing, then it's very clear to the court what was agreed upon. If the child doesn't end up being returned by the date that they agreed upon, then that's something that we can bring into family court. But they have to bring the action within that 6-month period, because after 6 months, we lose jurisdiction. And that people don't understand that, but that is the biggest part of that.
And what requirements do you need to file a divorce in Florida? Let's say you were married outside of Florida. You now live in Florida, you've been here for a few years and you want to get a divorce. What would the process be?
Sure. So it doesn't matter where you got married. It's a jurisdictional question. So you have to be within this, you have to have been living in the state or have left the state within a 6-month period. And a common question we get is, well, I got married in Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Sudan, wherever it is. But we're now living in Florida and we want to know if we can file and if it would be upheld here. And the answer is usually yes, as long as the paperwork's in order and you've been residing in Florida for 6 months or you left within 6 months. The other question we get is, well, my husband's out of the country, but I'm here. It doesn't matter. As long as one party is within the state, then we can bring the action here in Florida.
And in regards to protecting yourself and your assets, what should someone do, man or woman, to protect themselves before they enter into a marriage?
I don't know if I can yell this loud enough, but enter into a prenuptial agreement. Everyone, it protects you forever. It's a hard conversation to have with someone that you're going to marry, right? To say, hey, do you want to sit down and talk about getting a prenuptial agreement? But it is the smartest decision you can make. And it's smart because this generation now has assets, right? We have businesses, we have cars, we have houses, we have bank accounts, we have savings. So why open that up to your spouse taking 50% of that if you get divorced in the future, when you could simply see an attorney and have them document everything and discuss how things would be split in case of a divorce?
What type of things can you not put in a premarital settlement agreement?
So you cannot put anything regarding child support. So child support is non-negotiable. It's a calculation that we have here in the state of Florida. It's calculated according to your income. and your overnight time sharing agreement. So just because, and we get this all the time, just because one parent says, I don't want the child support, it's not your money, it's the child's money, and you can't negotiate out of that.
So what happens, and we've seen this often in the community, when a couple gets married, they have children, now they're getting divorced, but the husband works, shows less income than what he actually makes. And a lot of people have complained and gone to the courts with this issue, but how can we prove that the person or the spouse actually does make a certain amount that would, I guess, raise the child support?
So usually people are very smart and they know that a divorce is coming. So what they end up doing is exactly what you said. They start hiding assets, they start taking payments in cash, and they prepare for what they know is coming. What I usually tell the spouse that makes less money is that you need to be documenting everything. You need to be keeping evidence of how much was made at whatever time. You need to have solid evidence. You can't go into court and say, well, I think he was making $100,000 last year. No, you get the tax returns and you save them so that you have that evidence. And then when you hire an attorney, we as your attorneys then ask for 3 years of bank statements, 3 years of credit card charges, 3 years of tax returns, 3 years of all financials. And at that point, whatever they've been hiding within the last year or so will come out because we're able to see it. And if need be, we can hire a forensic accountant to dive even deeper if there are significant assets that are being hidden.
And that's a great point that you make, significant assets being hidden. When it comes to equitable distribution during a divorce, we've seen a lot where, like you said, people anticipate getting a divorce, so they try to hide their assets. Does that apply as well, I guess, with assets that were acquired prior to marriage that are now being commingled or used in marriage?
So the key word that you just said is commingled. If you would not have said that, assets that were acquired prior to the marriage would not be distributed in the divorce because they were premarital. The second you commingle them, they become marital. And the best way that I try to explain this to people is that the husband owns a home prior to the marriage. And then once they get married, the wife moves into the house. They have children and the mortgage is still being paid by the husband. That house now becomes a marital asset. The division, however, will not be 50-50 because whatever was put into the home prior to the marriage will not be considered part of the equitable distribution unless they're trying to offset something else in the marriage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Well, thank you, Sama. That was very informative. So for the people tuning in, what's the best way they can reach out to you for future questions or potentially a consultation? If you want to drop an email or a number for them to reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to put it in the chat or say it?
No, say it.
Yeah, you can just say it.
Okay. You can call the office at 305-677-5119, or you can email us at info@flpfl.com, and you can also follow us on social media at Lawyer Lady Boss.
Awesome. Without further ado, thank you for that, Sama. Our second panelist is the founder and owner of Joshi Law. We have with us today the man himself, Mr. Rajan Joshi. The floor is all yours, my friend.
Thank you. I'm Rajan Joshi. I've been practicing law now for 23 years, entirely criminal. I started my career off as a prosecutor for 4 years and have been doing criminal defense now for 19 years. I've handled every type of case there is, state and federal, whether it's murder, DUI, white collar cases such as fraud, money laundering, robberies, sex-related crimes, across the board. You know, as a defense attorney, I've worked at some of the top firms in town. I was a partner at James Law for about 8.5 years. Started my own law firm back in 2015 and going on our 8-year anniversary next week. I've got a team of attorneys, 5 total, some having up to 40 years experience, board certified attorneys in criminal law. We do state and federal, and we work as a team effort. I've been blessed to have had some high profile cases that have been on CNN, Headline News, Fox, Dr. Phil, The Today Show. But most of my clients are just everyday people who made mistakes or, got caught up in something unfortunate. And, we try to provide the best possible legal defense and strategies possible to get them the best results.
Very good. So question for you, if law enforcement knocks on my front door, do I have to open the door for them?
You don't. In fact, if they don't have a warrant, if they don't have a search warrant, you don't have to open the door for them, and you don't have to give them permission to search. You have a right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And, police can't just go barging in and searching your belongings, your house, even your person. There are exceptions when they can do so without a warrant, such as with a car, in limited circumstances. But no, if they come to your door and they don't have a search warrant, you don't have to answer the door. You don't have to talk to them. Now, if they have a search warrant, the best thing to do is just to step back, let them do whatever they're going to do, and then, hire the best attorney possible who can look to fighting the search warrant and whatever they found.
Okay. Another question for you. If I'm being interrogated by an officer, do I have to answer questions, or what do you think? What do you think is the best bet? Like, do I have to answer their questions legally?
You don't, and you shouldn't. We have what's called Miranda rights, and a lot of people don't understand Miranda, as it's meant to be. Miranda is the U.S. Supreme Court requiring the police officers to tell a person who is in custody that they shouldn't talk. The rights say you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And it tells them you have a right to an attorney. And if you cannot even afford an attorney, they'll provide one for you. So anytime you're in any type of trouble with the law, or you're a suspect in a crime, the best advice I would give is do not talk to the police. Ask for a lawyer. Do not try and explain your circumstances. Do not try and give your side of the story, hoping that they'll use it in your favor. They won't. They will use it against you. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people make the mistake of talking, thinking that's going to help them. That, oh, the police got me, so I may as well just confess, and they'll take mercy on me because of it. No, if you don't talk, that gives them less. The less you give them, the less they have.
Okay.
So I have a question in regards to involuntary confessions or voluntary confession. Let's say somebody is detained and Miranda was read, but for whatever reason, they're underage. And now the police is starting to tell them, we know that you did it. We can help you. We can figure things out from you. If not, then you don't cooperate with us. You're going to have life in prison, whatever it is. And let's say they're 15 years old. What would be the best advice to give to their parents or to give to them in that situation?
Well, in any situation, regardless of the age, the best advice I can give is do not talk. The police will use the accepted tools, and it is not against the law for the police to lie to a person and to tell them, hey, your confession will be used, favorably, or to tell them something to the effect like when two people get arrested, oh, your co-defendant has already confessed, so you may as well just tell your side of the story. When the police cross that line and start, making threats or promises that, something's going to happen, then the confession could be involuntary. And I've gotten confessions thrown out where Miranda was read, but the police went overboard. And the line that they have to cross is pretty high for their confession to be involuntary, and it's something that the judges will look at very thoroughly and scrutinize whether or not the police conduct led to an involuntary confession. And if it is involuntary, then it's kicked out of court. The jury never hears it.
Got it. And I guess what would be your advice for somebody who has been charged with a crime and for whatever reason they're scared of taking their case to trial? What would be the benefits of taking a plea versus going to trial?
Well, I mean, it depends. The thing is that if you're going to negotiate with the state, you want to do it from a position of strength, not weakness. And the way I do it is I prepare my case like it's going to trial. I push the case. And I look for all the holes, and then it's time to sit down at the table. Not do it in the beginning when the state's coming up and think they have a strong case. At that point, you're not going to get the good resolutions. But the best way to do so is to let the client know, the case should be thoroughly investigated. Sometimes the case may look great when it's handed to us, but when we question the witnesses, when we do depositions, we start tearing the case up, and then what the state had or believe they had is not there anymore. And the only way to do that is to start preparing the case for trial, and then usually that ends up turning out to be in the client's best interest, and they get the better result.
Understood. Now, we also got a online question from Teresa, and she asked, what is the best response to give an officer when we don't want to respond? Some officers tend to get aggressive.
And that's, it's going to be a case-by-case situation. Usually the best thing I can say is always be respectful, and always just say, respectfully, I don't want to talk. I want a lawyer. And then just stop. If they're going to want to search your car or search your house, just say, respectfully, I'm not consenting. And that way it doesn't escalate the problem. Because, most cops are good and they're doing their job and they have a tough job as it is. But there are some police officers out there who, have that ego, have that chip on their shoulder. And the best thing is not to provoke the situation.
So in that situation, let's say somebody gets pulled over, and Teresa also asked, are we allowed to record an officer when we are pulled over or feel that we are being treated unfairly?
There's no law against that. And, the police will try and say, hey, you got to put that away, give me your camera, or, tell you that you're obstructing justice or you're going to be charged with resisting. But recording the police is not against the law. So they can't go back and charge you. They will try, if they don't like what's going on and they don't want someone to see it, they're going to try and bully the person not to record them. But there's nothing illegal about doing that.
So when somebody gets pulled over, I would say, what are the requirements that I guess a defendant would have to prove that it was a legal Terry stop?
Well, it depends on what the justification is that the cop is using to pull the person over. And the police will sometimes pull someone over thinking it's a traffic infraction, such as, weaving in the lane or turning without a signal. But, what we do is we challenge that if no other traffic was affected, because sometimes the police will think that they have a legal reason to pull someone over and they'll put it down on paper, but the law requires more, like failing to maintain a single lane. If the police pull someone over solely for that infraction, but no other traffic was affected and the person was not creating a danger, that is not violating the civil citation of failing to maintain a single lane, and we attack the stop. So it depends on what the police is using for a justification, and then what we do is we scrutinize it and we see, is that really the lawful reason to pull them over, or was it an unlawful stop?
Got it. And let's say police does have a reason to pull somebody over. Let's say they're swerving, and let's say they look like they're driving under the influence, what would you give advice to somebody who is, driving under the influence? Do they consent to a breathalyzer? What is it that you recommend that they do?
With the DUI, the less you give, the less they got. I've tried so many DUIs, both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. I'm actually right now getting ready for a DUI trial, which I'm so excited about. But, the one thing I would say is if you don't have to admit to the police officer you were drinking, you just say, I don't want to answer that question. And the one thing I would strongly recommend is never do those field sobriety exercises. Never do them. Those are a better indication of how someone will perform in a circuit than whether or not they're capable of driving. When it comes to the breathalyzer, there are consequences if a person refuses. If it's their first time refusing, it is not a crime. But they will lose their license for a year, but they most likely will get a hardship if they qualify. And it'll be used against them in court that they refuse. But if they blow over the legal limit, that's going to be used against them in court too. And they will lose their license anyway. So, I don't drink, but if I had been drinking and I felt impaired, and it's my first time DUI, I would refuse. Now, a second time refusal, that then is a first degree misdemeanor, sorts of crime. So then, you got to kind of weigh, is it worth, risking a DUI or just going with that crime?
Understood. Thank you so much John for that. I really appreciate it. The next panelist we have is the owner and founder of the Zaini law firm, attorney Abdulrahman Zaini. Welcome. Oh, you're muted.
Hello, ahlan wa sahlan. How are you?
Hello, Sahlan. Just give us a brief introduction about you and your law firm and the type of laws that you practice.
Sure. I don't want to get the founders mad at me. So I wasn't the founder. My oldest sister, Marwa Zaini, was the founder back in 2002. And Abdullah joined her and my big brother, and then they both left. So I have been there since 2007, but I'm not the founder. But I am one of the owners with Abdullah.
Got it.
Got to give credit where credit is due. I've been practicing since 2007. I practice real estate, business, wills and trusts, and bankruptcy, and very little immigration. I send my immigration to Naif. And basically, why would you need a real estate lawyer? Why would you need an estate planning lawyer? Because those are the things that you've been working the hardest on. Usually real estate is most likely the most expensive thing you're going to buy in your life, is the biggest investment that you have. And once you get close to dying, or once you actually have assets, you need to protect them and make sure that you're able to pass them down to your children without having to pay the lawyers and the taxman so much money. So those are the two most important things that I see. That those are my two main practice areas: real estate and wills and trusts.
And I guess when it comes to a will and trust, would you recommend every person to get a will?
Yes, everyone should have at least a will. And most likely, most people don't. If you own any property that's titled, you would want to also have a trust. If you don't have a will and you pass away, the state decides based on the statutes how your property is going to be passing to your relatives. And then the other problem becomes they have to pay attorneys a lot of money in order to get that, and they have to wait a long time in probate court. So like, even if it was a simple probate case and it was rocket docket and you got the best judge who doesn't give you any problems, you're looking at like minimum of 3 to 6 months. And that's even with like a simple summary administration, which is less than 75,000 or longer than 2 years dead. So you definitely want to have at least a will. Now the problem with just having a will is it has to be probated. It has to go through court, and that's what you're going to pay the attorney is going to be based on how much your estate is worth. So if your estate is worth $1 million, you're looking at probably paying about 3% to the attorney. So you're looking at like $30,000 for attorney's fees. And with the way real estate prices are right now, $1 million is not a very large estate. So do you really want to pay $30,000 to or have your estate pay $30,000 to an attorney when you can avoid that by paying a lot less, between like maybe $2,500 average to like $5,000. I don't know how much the charges, but yeah, you're looking between $25,000 and $5,000 depending on your side of your estate. Unless it's really complex, then it can get a little more than that.
We're on the same page. Don't worry.
Now, when it comes to an estate plan, some people say, well, I don't have many assets, or I don't have any assets. What's the benefit of getting an estate plan?
Okay, so if you want to choose the guardian for your children, that's a big one for wills. If you pass away and let's say you and your wife, God forbid, or you and your husband, God forbid, pass away in a car accident, right? If you did not put a guardian in your will, or you did not have some sort of guardianship proceeding, then the state is going to choose who the guardian is going to be. So let's say you have no family in the United States, you're going to have a problem. So definitely having a will is very important. At least there's other documents in an estate plan that we also definitely prepare. There's a healthcare surrogate agreement and a living will. Healthcare surrogate is if you're in the hospital and you can't make decisions for yourself, you can appoint someone to make those decisions for you. Living will is if you're in a coma and or in an end stage condition, and what you would want to happen if you're not able to make that decision, whether you want them to withdraw treatment or not. There's also other documents like a durable power of attorney. Again, if you are in a coma or something in the hospital, your family cannot access your bank accounts, your passwords, all of that stuff. So having a durable power of attorney would also be very important. So an estate plan is encompassing all those documents: a will, possibly a trust, healthcare surrogate, durable power of attorney, and living will.
So we have a question from the audience. Matez asked, are children under the age of 18 able to use any of the assets or money left for them in the will?
Okay, so they can, but if they're under 18 and you did not choose a guardian for them, or if you did not create a trust, now you can create a trust for them, and then that trustee would be able to deal with it immediately. However, if you don't have any of that set up, then yes, they can use it, but they're probably going to need a guardianship proceeding in order to access that money. Which means someone else above the age of 18 will have to step in, probably a family member or a close friend, and the court would have to approve them. And then they would also have a guardianship committee that also they have to prove to them that they're a good guardian for them. And then they have to do quarterly reporting to the courts and show them what they're doing with the money, how they're investing it, how they're spending it. So it is having a trust or something like that would be much easier because you don't have to get the courts involved. It's much easier.
Understood. Now, what happens if, let's say, you're a married couple with 2 children and you both die without a will, or one person dies without a will? How does the assets, I guess, go down? Who do they go to?
It depends on Florida law. So obviously, what you just asked is a very loaded question. So the answer is it depends. So are the children just by that married couple, or were they half children, or were they not? So if they're just by that couple and it was one spouse and the spouse dies and they have children, then it's going to go all to the spouse first per Florida law. And then it would go if that spouse had passed away, it would go down to the children 50-50. So if you care about the religious edicts where, there's differences as to how people are going to get it, you really need to have a will for that. Otherwise, it's not going to go with the religious way. It's going to go 50-50.
Understood. And we have another question from Monira, and she asks, she has a friend who is married and has some money, and she wants to write a will to her sister when she dies. If she dies, does the husband of that sister take her money?
If the lady dies after,
you're
worried about. So if the lady's alive, she gets to keep the money, And when she has that money, she can write a will, because inheritance is one, I believe, is one of the exceptions to marital property, right? Generally, if you don't commingle it.
Sorry. Yes, it is. As long as you don't commingle it or you have a prenup or a postnup.
Okay. So she gets to keep her money and she can write the will for that specific stuff to whoever she wants. But if she doesn't write a will, yes, the husband would inherit.
Understood. Well, thank you so much, Attorney Zaini, for that. Serge, I believe.
Yes. So our next, well, thank you for that, Mr. Zaini. That was very insightful stuff. Our next panelist is founder and owner of Mubarak Law, Naif Mubarak, and the floor is all yours, my friend.
Thank you, guys. I'm sorry about earlier. My computer decided to do an update the second you said my name, but Naif Mubarak, if you don't know me, immigration lawyer, been doing this over 14 years. So I am honored to be here and really excited to be here with a diverse group of attorneys, because my area of law tends to overlap on all of these things. A lot of times that's why I get to work with so many of them so often. But some background about me: I was born in New York, but raised in Orlando, been part of the AACC since I was 5. And to all the volunteers, Dana, Khalil, it's so much work. So thank you guys for doing this and serving our community. And most of the attorneys who sponsor us, they not only give us money, but they also then spend their time. So it doesn't go unnoticed to me, at least. So immigration, there's a lot of different questions about it. And sometimes we represent a variety of people. We have people who are investing $1 million in the country. We have people who have crossed the border 30 years ago and we're doing deportation defense, or employers sponsoring individuals. In addition to, of course, the Lam Shamal family petitions and the citizenship applications that we do day in and day out. Now, what I love about my job is the diversity of people, meaning their backgrounds, all the different cultures of Arabs I get to meet and get to know and become friends with, and then the overlap and get to work with attorneys like Rajan, where we were partners at Nijane, and then the family law attorneys I hope to meet Samah one day and discuss, because family law all the time rampant with immigration due to sponsorships and cultural differences, and of course wills and estates. Most people don't know that if you're not a U.S. citizen, your spouse or your relative can't inherit certain amounts without protection. And these are very things that you need to know if your spouse is or children are foreigners. So immigration does cover everything, because it's kind of touches people who are affected in every aspect of the law. I have served as the chair of the immigration community for Orange County. I've served for the American Immigration Lawyers Association in 2018 and 19. And alhamdulillah, I was just elected again for that position for 2023 and 2024. So I look forward to serving and teaching young lawyers more about immigration law, because I could do this all day. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and answer any questions that you guys might have.
Very well put. I actually do have a question for you. Or actually, we have a question from Facebook, from Razan. I have a question for you, Mubarak, please. I got the green card in 2019, more than 3 years ago, and I'm still married to my husband, who's a U.S. citizen. In August of this year, I would have accumulated 15 months of physical presence in Orlando, Florida. First question, can I file an application for the U.S. citizenship in August, or do I have to wait until I accumulate 18 months of physical presence? Second question, can I leave the U.S. for a short period after I apply for the U.S. citizen?
Okay, it's quite the specific question, and I'm happy to go ahead and address it. So when you're a green card holder married to a U.S. citizen, you get to apply based on 3 years instead of 5 years if you are living with your U.S. citizen spouse for that 3-year period. Now, whether you're applying based on 3 years or based on 5 years, you have the right to apply 3 months prior to your anniversary. However, you should meet the conditions prior to applying. So if it was me, I would wait to have those 18 months in order, so that way the officer cannot ask you any particular questions. And I will go ahead and say, if you have very specific questions or sensitive questions about marriages, or try to keep them generic, this is not legal advice or confidential, but we'll do our best to help you. So I would wait 18 months, and then I would go ahead and apply. This way the officer can't give you a hard time. So that 3 month is not worth, risking a headache later down the road.
Very good.
We have a very common question that we receive here at the AACC, and I've heard it millions of times. And the question is, I don't have any U.S. citizen relatives. How can I become a U.S. citizen?
There's a lot of different options that we have to explore, but I always try to tell people, when you come to our office, I need you to forget about what Flan and Alan said and what so-and-so did, because we have to talk about your case-specific situation. How did you enter the country? What status are you currently in? What is your education level? What are your job opportunities? What are your investment amounts? So I kind of like to, even though you might come in for a student visa, I typically will do an analysis of your entire feedback of your situation to see what other options we might have. For example, Lebanese folks are not eligible for the E2, the visa istithmar E2. It's not available for Lebanese. But if your spouse is Jordanian or your father might be Jordanian or Egyptian, we can get you that nationality and then proceed with the E2 visa. So although we might not have a solution for you today, the idea is to try to find a solution that we can build towards to. So if you're patient and you plan far enough in advance, hopefully we can find a solution for you. Now, if you've been out of status, if you came on a student visa or a tourist visa and you're out of status, there's not really much we can do. Unless you've had change in conditions, asylum might be an option for you, or marriage to a U.S. citizen or immediate relative, like a citizen child who's over 21. But typically, if you arrived in status, we have time to plan for you. But if you've come to an attorney after you've fallen out of status or are in deportation proceedings, we're going to have limited options at that point.
And we had some, I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, sorry, Dana. I just wanted to say, beside that, so you want to look at your education options, employer options. If you don't have a family member, there is other options, but it might be employment or investment or even some kind of humanitarian thing. So it really does require a case-by-case basis.
Understood. And so we received some questions ahead of time. And one of them was somebody said, currently I have a citizenship. My mom has a green card. However, both my father and my sister do not have anything. Who would be the best person to apply for my dad or my sister from a processing time standpoint?
Automatically, it's going to be the mom who, when she becomes a citizen, she has a green card, but she can apply for her spouse. Her spouse will be category F2A, which is for the most part current or about a year and a half. So there is a visa bulletin. It's not like a spouse of a U.S. citizen. Sometimes there's a wait time, but as a spouse of a resident and they're abroad, you're looking at a year and a half to 2 years. Now, if your sister is under 21, she will also be the same category as dad. So mom would still do it. Now, if sister is married or over 21, then the sister, the U.S. citizen sister, will be the only person able to petition for that individual. So as a green card holder, you have limited options as to who you can petition for, and that's going to be your spouse, your child under 21, or your unmarried child over 21. Married children, brothers and sisters, and parents is a benefit of a U.S. citizen only.
Understood. Another question we received was, if my green card expires January of 2024, can I submit a renewal application for my green card and travel after the expiration date?
Right. So depending if you're renewing your green card through a form I-90, which is not related to your marriage, it's just simply you're renewing your 10-year green card, you typically will get a sticker on the back of your green card, creating an automatic extension once you complete the biometrics appointment, which is your fingerprint appointment. Same thing, if you have been married for less than 2 years and you are now applying for your 10-year green card on form 751, that form, believe it or not, takes over 2 years to be approved. So they will automatically send you an extension that's going to be valid for 2 years, and you will be able to travel with that. Do not travel without an extension. You will technically have the right to return, but you're going to have a big headache, and you're going to imagine dealing with TSA or flight attendants or people trying to explain to them why you're trying to get on a plane with an expired document. You will have a headache even with the document showing your extension. So I always advise people to get to the airport an extra hour early. If you're Palestinian in Israel, maybe 6 hours early. So these are things you got to plan for. But yeah, usually it's okay to travel once you have proof of your extension pending.
Thank you. And Razan asked, I guess, can I leave the U.S. after I apply for citizenship for a short period of time?
Yeah, absolutely. You can leave. If you are going to wait those 3 months, I definitely say that you can leave. But if you're going to take the risk and apply 3 months early and you're on the line about having continuous or physical presence requirements, you don't want to give the officer more reasons to question where you are actually living. So although you have 18 months, people often forget that there's other requirements or subjective things, meaning the officer's opinion as to where you're actually living. So if you are constantly abroad and your taxes say 0 in the US and you come home to the United States for 3 weeks every 6 months, they might have questions for you. But if you have, for the most of the time, been here, absolutely you can travel. I just say be mindful of that if you are on the cusp of qualifying. And I will just say, since we haven't received this question, students, green card holders, if you're not a US citizen and you have anything criminal related, do not get on a plane at all. Rajan knows, I know how many people, I just wanted to go on a cruise, Naif, it's spring break, and you know, forgot they had a pending criminal case or they had a misdemeanor marijuana charge, and now we're fighting a deportation case. There's a lot of things that can be avoided. So just, it's very sensitive until you become a US citizen. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well, since we're talking about travel.
Very good. We have one more question that's in Arabic. Give me 1 second.
She's asking if I have a green card, can I do a petition for my child's child? I believe that's what it says. ما فيك تعملي لم شمل لغير أولادك اللي تحت 21 سنة ومش متزوجين. بس لو أي ولد, like a grandchildren, you cannot petition for them. Not even US citizens can petition for grandchildren. Her brother, yeah. So no family members other than your children under 21.
Okay, very good. Now I'd like to introduce Dana Ahmed to the floor as a panelist. And Dana Ahmed, now the spotlight's on you today.
I guess so. So my name is Dana or Dana Ahmed. I'm an attorney at Morgan & Morgan. I purely handle litigation and cases to take to trial in regards to auto accident negligence claims, meaning that I represent people who have been injured, who have sustained substantial injuries because of an auto accident on the hands of somebody else. And so as I dive into this topic, Florida is popular for a lot of things, right? We're popular for sunshine, great beaches, vacation spots, and sadly, our auto accidents. And so if you've been in an auto accident in Florida, what do? What happened? And the most common thing I hear from my potential clients or from my clients is, I wasn't at fault. Why do I have to pay to fix my own car? Or why doesn't the other driver's insurance cover me? And here's the reality. Florida is a no-fault state. And in answering this, you'll often hear me and other personal injury attorneys use the term liability. But what is liability? And this is a term basically used to indicate legal responsibility. And legal responsibility civilly is a little bit different than in criminal. Civil liability is taking responsibility for doing harm to another person for things like a car accident or an oil spill or any other forms of negligence. And usually in civil liability cases, they can usually be recovered by a settlement, alternative dispute resolutions, or even a jury trial. And most of the time when you think of auto accidents, people say, well, it was an accident, right? And so usually it's non-deliberate and mostly it's careless. So think of another person crashing their car into yours, for instance, or they were probably looking at their GPS or texting and driving or trying to find a street name. And most of the time, the defendant has a duty to another driver. So every Florida driver has a duty to another Florida driver to protect them. and drive safely. And in this instance, when you get into a car accident, usually it's because you failed or you breached that duty to protect another driver.
Okay, very good. I have a question for you, Ms. Ahmed. If I'm involved in an accident, what should I do at the scene of the accident? Is there something I need to do? What do you recommend?
So at the scene of the accident, the first thing you need to do is assess if you're okay. That's one. Second thing is to call 911. And the reason why we say that is because if you don't call 911, there's no record of your car accident. So we want to make sure that police are called, EMCs or the ambulances is on their way, to make sure that you're okay. Secondly, you need to call a lawyer.
Very good. So I heard from other people that I have to treat within 14 days. Why do I have to treat within 14 days of the accident?
So on every Florida insurance policy, you purchase something called personal injury protection. And personal injury protection kicks in when you have been seen by a medical provider within 14 days. If you pass the 14-day threshold, your personal injury protection coverage does not kick in. And so we always advise our clients to go and see a physician or an urgent care or ER as soon as possible so that you can get those benefits.
Another question for you. If I was involved in a hit and run and I can't locate the person that hit me, do I still have a case?
Possibly. So it depends. If you can't locate the person who hit you, and for whatever reason we don't have a tag number, or there's just no possible way for us to know about the driver who hit you, there is something called uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage in the state of Florida. What that does is uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage protects you in case of a hit and run or somebody driving without insurance hits you. Now, uninsured motorist coverage is not on every policy. However, every insurance company needs to offer it to you, and you have to reject it in writing in order for that coverage not to apply. And so I recommend everybody driving in the state of Florida to definitely have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, because the state of Florida does not require you to protect another person. The state of Florida requires you to just carry personal injury protection coverage and property damage collision coverage up to $10,000. And so we have so many Florida drivers just driving saying that we have full coverage, but they don't really know what that means. And so in order to protect yourself, to protect your assets, and to protect yourself in case somebody hits you when you're driving and they're uninsured or underinsured, always carry uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage.
Okay, and I have another question for you here. This kind of ties into immigration as well. If I don't have citizenship in America and I get involved in an accident, do I have a claim?
Absolutely. You still have a claim. Your status does not matter when it comes to filing a civil lawsuit, especially for a personal injury claim. You are still protected.
So if I'm an immigrant and I file a claim, it shouldn't affect my immigration process.
That is a question for Nave.
No. Sorry. Yeah, but that should not affect your status. But if you have an accident, definitely seek counsel.
For sure. And then another question I have for you here that pops up kind of frequently. If I'm a passenger in a vehicle and that vehicle gets, impacted or hit and I get injured, can I bring a claim even though I wasn't driving the car?
Absolutely. So we have something in Florida called resident relative coverage. And basically, if you're in a vehicle and let's say you don't have insurance, you don't drive. Let's say you're 16 years or 15 years old, your mom was driving, you're a passenger, right? We can always make the personal injury protection claim under mom's or sister's or brother's or whoever's coverage insurance policy. And then if the other driver who hit you does have insurance, we can still file a bodily injury claim against them, even if you are a passenger in a vehicle.
Okay. And one last question. If I was involved in an accident, how long do I have to bring a lawsuit against the other party?
So initially, prior to the tort reform in March of 2023, the statute of limitations for bringing a lawsuit or a claim in Florida was 4 years. But that since has changed. And so the legislation of March of 2023, it's now 2 years. And so now you're seeing that most injury lawsuits are starting to work a little bit faster than they were before. And the reasoning for that is that we want to make sure that you are able to bring your claim as soon as possible to have your fair day in court.
Okay, very good.
And another thing that's changed, just to put it out there so people know, in the state of Florida, prior to March of 2023, we were something called a comparative negligence state. And what that means is that if, for whatever reason, your claim, if you take your case to trial and you were found 98% at fault for the crash, you were still able to collect 2% of your recovery. Now, after March of 2023, the law has changed. And basically now, if you're found 51% at fault, you are completely barred from bringing a recovery or from taking a recovery in a case. And so technically, we call it a defense verdict. And the reasoning for that is because you can't collect on your claim.
Okay, I don't think there's any more questions. I think that was it.
Thank you. Well, Serge, I think we should switch it up and get you to talk a little bit.
Okay, so for the ones that know me or don't know me, my name is Serge Havandisyan. I am a lawyer practicing in business law, personal injury, and property insurance. So I was going to go over some other aspects, but given the fact that with hurricane season around the corner, I think it's crucial to prepare homeowners for potential challenges they may face during hurricane season. And I want to share some important tips for those homeowners that are out there. First and foremost, understand your insurance policy. Now, before a storm hits, take the time to thoroughly review your insurance policy. Understand the extent of your coverage, the deductibles, and any exclusions that may apply. Make sure your policy provides enough coverage to rebuild your home and replace your things. Now, this also applies for businesses as well. Second, you definitely want to document your property. A comprehensive home inventory can help expedite the claim process. So take some videos and take some pictures of your home and valuable belongings and store it somewhere safe. That way you can retrieve it later on. Third, you should definitely make necessary repairs to the home. Any pre-existing damage could potentially impact your insurance claim. Insurance companies love denying claims based off of pre-existing damage. So you definitely want to make sure those repairs before hurricane season hits and keep all the receipts as proof of maintenance. The next thing you should probably do is keep a record of damages. After a hurricane, and once it's safe for you and your family, inspect your property for damage. Right? Document it, take pictures, take videos, date them, make notes about what happened. People tend to forget when time passes. The next thing you have to do is it's in your insurance deck page. You have a duty to report the claim promptly. Now you have to notify your insurance company as soon as possible after the damage occurs. Provide them with your policy info and as much detail as possible. If that is too challenging for you for whatever reason, you can seek with a professional. You can reach out to property damage attorneys and they can kind of guide you on it. The next thing you should do is save all your receipts. If you have to make immediate repairs to prevent further damage or pay for temporary housing, save those receipts. These costs may be recovered by the insurance company. Next thing you should probably do is probably work with a professional. Insurance claims can be complicated, especially when it involves hurricane damage. You may want to consider hiring an attorney who specializes in property insurance claims to help navigate the process and ensure you get a fair settlement. And then lastly, be patient, be persistent, The claim process can take some time, especially after a large scale event like a hurricane. These claims get swamped and these adjusters don't have enough time to get out to everybody. So be patient. stay in contact with the insurance company and keep track of all communication. And remember, an insurance policy is like a contract. Always feel free to consult with a legal professional if you believe your claim is not being handled fairly. And while it may seem daunting, you're not alone. Here at Hove Law, we're here to help navigate those legal waters so you can focus on what matters the most.
Serge, I guess the biggest question is, now that we're going into hurricane season, what can somebody do to ensure that if their home is damaged, that their policy will kick in?
Yeah, so the most important thing is you want to report it as soon as possible. It's actually required in some of the policies. It's in the language in there. This next thing you want to do is you do have a duty to mitigate damages. Mitigating damages means you have to stop the damage from getting worse. Sometimes insurance companies might deny claims because you failed your duty to mitigate. So, for example, if your roof is leaking and you see water dripping in, you should probably go and hire somebody to throw a tarp on the roof so that way it doesn't continue to leak. You should probably dry out the water and prevent any mold from growing, because mold can spread like wildfire inside your home. So you want to preserve the property, document it right, and file the claim. And that's your best chance of getting the claim to go through. If it doesn't go through, there's professionals, and we could file a lawsuit against the insurance company to enforce your rights of the contract.
Got it. At this point, I would like to open the floor for general questions for everybody. And one of the first questions we received from the audience, hold on, we just got a Facebook question. A lot of Muslim community members believe that they don't need a will and expect their estate to be divided according to Islamic law. Can you go into this a bit? Open to the floor, whoever wants to answer.
Since I did the wills, in a perfect world where you had like a father, or let's say a husband and wife, and let's say the husband dies and the wife gets all the money. In a perfect world, that wife would not be greedy at all, and she would go ahead and give everyone their fair share, and everything would be great. However, the world is not perfect, and as soon as money gets involved, people change, people get greedy. People have other influences in their lives, whether it be parents, siblings, etc. And so, no, if you do not have a will, no one will be able to force an inheritor to share their share. That whoever the state says per the statute, and the way the statute works is first it goes to the spouse, and then it goes down to the kids. If there's no kids, it goes up to the parents, and if there's no parents, it goes sideways, brothers and sisters. And it would be 50. It would always be 50-50. So if it goes down and you have 3 kids, down 3 kids, each one would get 1/3. Go up to the parents. Both parents are alive. Each parent gets 50-50. Siblings, you have 3 siblings. Each one gets 1/3. So that's how it would happen. It doesn't go by Islamic law. It goes by Florida intestacy statutes.
Great. And here's a question for the floor, so I guess anybody can chime in on this. But we received something ahead of time, and they asked, what would be a common mistake you see in general that people commit in your area of practice, and what are your recommendations?
I'll go. I usually get in the divorce world or family law issues that they don't want to go through an attorney and they want to represent themselves in court. And I think that applies to all areas of practice here. As an attorney myself, I would hire an attorney for any legal issues. I wouldn't hire myself. I wouldn't hire my husband who's an attorney. I would hire an outside party, because even though you think that you're your best advocate, emotions come into play and you're not able to see clearly and you're not able to argue or negotiate for your best interest. And you don't go in and do brain surgery if you're not a brain surgeon, right? So you have to rely on the experts to do their job and do the best that they can for you. And another follow-up, a lot of people believe that the elders in the community can resolve their issues. And although I'd love to agree with this, and I do think that in certain circumstances it's great to have their advice, they are not attorneys, and sometimes they give the wrong advice. So maybe hand in hand with an attorney, that would be a good game plan.
Very well.
For me, I would say we touched on this when I was speaking. The biggest mistake I see is when people talk to the police and they think that it's going to help them. That is the worst mistake possible. If you're a suspect, if the police are questioning you and they're even insinuating you did the crime, do not talk. Just say, I'm not speaking without an attorney, and then call an attorney.
I would say people talk to other people, maybe not talking to cops, but talking to the community to get their legal advice instead of speaking to, our beautiful panel for proper legal advice. And then, I did a series on social media saying don't be stupid. And one of those things is, don't lie to your attorney, right? Don't be stupid. Don't surprise us with something. Hiding something from me is not going to hide it from the government. So the only way I could represent you to my maximum ability is that when I ask you particular questions, you answer them. So don't surprise us with anything like that.
And that's funny because I see that a lot in my practice when I talk to my clients prior to like a deposition or a mediation. Yeah. And I always ask them, well, have you had any prior car crashes, slip and falls, prior injuries? And they almost always tell me no. Yeah. And I get into the deposition, and when they're under that question and answer, they're like, oh, I had a car accident in five years ago in 2019 or in 1995. And then I'm like, where did this come from? You need to let me know.
We all see. I'm in an immigration trial trying to tell the judge what an amazing person they are, and then something gets sprung out on me. But now we do background checks on our own clients, right? So we have to do the FBI background checks on our clients to make sure that we can help them from helping themselves.
Absolutely. Don't lie to your attorneys. Tell them everything. When in doubt, let them know your whole entire history.
So for me, I would say the same thing with what Naif said, is listening to other people, but sometimes other people that are interested parties. So in real estate, listening to your realtor only and not getting an attorney. The realtor needs the sale in order to get the commission. I'm a realtor too, so I'm not bashing realtors, but they do need you to close in order to get paid. We attorneys, we're going to give you the honest advice based on whatever it is, hourly rate or whatever rate we have, unbiased advice. We don't need you to close in order to get paid. So we're going to tell you whether or not it's in your best interest to close. So listening to interested parties, especially salespeople, is a big problem that we have.
And to piggyback on that a little bit, I think a problem that I see all the time is people don't read the contracts that they sign, whether that be a real estate contract, whether it be anything else. Understanding what you're signing is very important. And people just sign their life away to things and they don't even realize it. So knowledge is definitely key.
Absolutely.
Mr. Alami had a question in Arabic, and we're just trying to decipher it. So
I think it basically said he has asylum, he has the paperwork from overseas, and he wants to get divorced. And they're in the middle of an asylum case, and they want to get divorced.
Yeah, I'm not. So the question being, you want to get divorced here or there?
Here, yeah, they have a pending asylum case, and you know how long they're taking. And that couple who has a pending asylum case wants to get divorced.
Oh, so usually, okay. So I think when somebody is married and there's one primary individual who's the asylum applicant, once they get divorced, that individual can no longer ride on their application. So if you are a part of that case, you would have to file your own asylum application or have some other form of relief, or you would be ordered removed or deported. Now, as far as jurisdiction for the divorce, it's going to be like what Ms. Samah answered, and that was like, if you've been here for more than 6 months, probably Florida has jurisdiction here. But yes, if you are riding on your spouse's asylum application and then they divorce you or vice versa, you are no longer going to be considered part of that. You can still file your own, but you're going to have your own claim. Thanks, Zainab.
And this question is from Facebook. What is the Welcome Corps program? Can we really bring individuals to the USA through this program?
I've never heard of Welcome Corps. There's a lot, there might be, so we need to be really careful. There's a lot of bad companies out there that will say that they'll register you for the lottery, or they will find work for you and they will petition and sponsor you. Some things you need to know: the diversity visa lottery, that's free. I don't even take money for that. I tell people, here's the link, register yourself. So you should not be paying somebody thousands of dollars a month to add you for that. For Welcome Corps, Ms. Safa, I don't know about that, but if you want to clarify, I've never heard about it, but there are programs like the United for Ukraine, the Process for Venezuelans. Very specific countries have been listed as far as who can be processed for parole.
Awesome. And so I guess this would be a general question. How do all of our fields of law interact? And a lot of people tend to go to one attorney and they think they know everything, like back in the day. And now we've all kind of, went into our own little specialties. But how do our fields of practice interlap? What have you guys seen on a daily basis or a monthly basis?
Well, I think so. For example, with business law, it kind of overlaps with wills and trust. So there you go. So some business owners need a will. Some business owners get divorced, I think. Well, they do not, I think. So they get divorced. They got to go through divorce and child support and all that good stuff. Sometimes these business owners are immigrants, and they got to get their citizenship in order. And then sometimes business owners commit crimes. And there's a lot of overlap, I think, in the legal community. And every attorney kind of finds a little niche that they like to do. And attorneys that practice, the jack of all trades is the jack of no trade, is a famous quote. So you definitely want to find an attorney that's I guess in your area of law that practices what you're looking for. I don't know if anyone wants to add something to that.
You forgot the most important one. So you need to protect your assets from Dana and her people.
That's right. That is correct.
Sorry, guys.
Or the divorce lawyers. Yeah, I mean, I think I've literally worked on a case with Rajan all the time where Rajan's representing somebody who's a foreigner. And then he was like, Naif, I have these plea deals. Can my client accept these plea deals? So then I have to look at that client's history to see if they've had something at. And I've dealt with family law where I was called as an expert witness because you have a guy who brought this woman here. He pledged the U.S. government he'll support her. Now he wants to divorce her and doesn't want to pay any child support or anything. So I actually had to teach my family law attorney friend that there's a form. It's basically a contract. And we use that to support my client's claim. And so it's all overlap. We're human beings, and all these human beings have aspects of their lives in every area. So I think it's not impossible for all of us to be on one case one day, but that would be a good hypothetical for law school.
Panel, I think I have I've sent you cases, Naif, and people always ask me for personal injury stuff, and I have personal injury referrals. And criminal, I don't do criminal at all. I know nothing about it. If I were to get arrested, I would probably have to call someone immediately because all I know is don't speak and call an attorney. That's all I know. So, and family law, and for being in this community, whether or not we practice family law, I would say at least 2 or 3 times a week, we get questions about family law. Whether we try to run away from it as much as possible or not, we do definitely get that all the time.
I've actually had cases, against Dana's firm where my client's being charged with a DUI where somebody got killed, and you guys are on the side of suing my client, and then a lot of domestic battery cases I have family law attorneys on the other side who's pushing the prosecution for leverage in the divorce. So sometimes I have to go up against other attorneys in other areas. A lot of times business attorneys in regards to some type of white collar case. And, I end up, working very closely with them. I work very closely with Naif, as he mentioned, on a lot of cases over the years when we were partners. And now, we just can't get away from each other. I probably call him once a month, and we discuss different matters and stuff. So it's really good when we can have a wealth of resources and knowledge in different areas, because our practices aren't, confined to one area. They encompass so much. And when I have a network of, brilliant attorneys like yourselves, it makes my job easier, and it makes me do a more efficient job for my client.
Absolutely. And that's something I've noticed, and at least in my practice, I get a lot of cases where husband and wife get into an auto accident, husband and wife get divorced, case settles, how do we disperse the settlement? And I often have to let them know, if you're married and you're still married, even if you just filed for divorce, you both are getting your own settlement. So if that money is being split or split into different accounts and not used as marital money, that's fine. But then I have to call like somebody like Samah and be like, hey, what do I do here? Can I deposit it into their accounts, or do they have to be completely divorced for this to work? So it happens often. And then also contract law. I never realized how much contracts I have to read because insurance policies are contracts. And so that definitely was a big change for me when I got into this field. But we do have a question, and I believe this question is for Samah. In regards to domestic violence, is domestic violence only on women? And what are the percentage of domestic violence on men and children within the Arab community?
So it is not just on women, it can be on men too. And we've represented men who have been victims of domestic violence before. I don't have the exact percentage, I haven't memorized that, but I will give a rough number and say that the majority are acts of violence committed against women and children rather than men. And those are the calls that we usually get. We work with different organizations across the state of Florida that house women and children who are victims of domestic violence. So most of our cases in the Arab community come from from those organizations. And there are sadder cases. So we don't like to have those cases, but yes, we do.
And I would say something, although I know the statistics are still very, very high, men don't report it as much as well. But it's still way, way higher for the women to be there.
Correct.
So jump in, make sure you know the organizations, and I'm sure the AACC can help with domestic violence issues. I work with the Muslim Women's Organization, and domestic violence. If you're in immigration, if somebody's telling you you're gonna never see your kids again, I'm gonna deport you. You don't have to be scared of the police. There's a lot of options, and there's called Violence Against Women's Act. But it also applies to men and children, and even parents. And so there's multiple forms of abuse. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical. But if you feel like you're in a tough situation, regardless of your status, please seek help from somebody. And it is unfortunately rampant in the community.
The next question is, do any of you take pro bono cases for the underserved community or for any client that might come from the AACC?
So we take pro bono cases from certain organizations. We don't take them if they call into the firm. And the reason we do that is because we report to the Florida Bar our pro bono hours, and we want to make sure that they're properly vetted and they are people who need pro bono services. But I would say probably 10% of our practice is pro bono at this time.
We take a few cases a year through the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar Association. They vet the people for us as well, and then they send them to us.
We take a couple as well a year. With asylum and everything else, everybody's almost a difficult story, but we have to make sure we are helping the most needy. Everybody's resources are limited, so we try to vet them and make sure that we can apply the services there.
Okay. And let's see.
And most of my pro bono cases are actually bankruptcy cases. So people who really have a lot of debt and are not able to pay them.
And just to add on, sorry, there are multiple organizations that can be reached so that they can send you to the right attorneys. We work with legal aid. We take cases. All the attorneys in my office do. There's legal aid offices all over the state of Florida. There's also the Noor Center in South Florida that helps women who are victims of domestic violence. And there are other organizations that you can reach out to.
Awesome. Well, if there's anything else anybody would like to add, we're coming up on almost 2 hours. Anything anyone else would like to add before we go? Okay, so as we come to the end of this enlightening legal panel, I would first like to express our deep gratitude to our esteemed panelists. Their rich insights and shared experiences have truly brought the various aspects of law to life, from family law to immigration and everything in between. And we have navigated through some of the most intricate topics in a way that is understandable and relatable for us all.
And I wanted to say a special thank you to all of you, our attentive audience. Your participation, your questions, and your curiosity has made this event a fruitful exchange of knowledge and perspectives. We hope that you found this discussion to be beneficial and that it has shed some light on the complexities of the legal world.
We would be remiss not to recognize the vital role of the Arab American Community Center of Florida and their ongoing commitment to create a space for cultural exchange, fostering understanding, and championing legal awareness in the community is truly commendable. It's their support and it's their support that has made this enriching event possible. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to the respective panelists' offices. And thank you once again for investing your time with us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.